We've arrived at bowl season, regular season standings, Jake. I went 60 and 56 on my picks, plus 4 units to end the year. You were 59 and 42, so plus 17 units. You pretty much smashed me.
You know, it's not a competition. We're both making money. We're both winning bets, having fun watching college football. At the end of the day, it's kind of all it's all about.
The goal is to go positive, and we're going to try and get a run going during bowl season. So I've got my pick'em contests I've been entered into, and they want you to make your picks early, but I can't go out and make a pick right now not knowing what the final depth charts or rosters are going to look like, because we still don't know all the opt-outs for these games.
Yeah, this is something that has emerged massively in the last couple of years is so many players are sitting out not only for the NFL draft, which was a thing, but now we're sitting out due to transferring in the transfer portal. So it's going to be interesting to see who plays in what games. Keeping a close eye to the news and seeing who's in and who's out is absolutely essential for bowl season picks.
Well, this first game does have one key opt-out. So we got UCLA and Boise State. It's essentially a home game for UCLA. I think it's played at the Inglewood Stadium. So what do you like in this one?
Yeah, pretty much a home game for UCLA at the Chargers Stadium in the LA Bowl hosted by Rob Gronkowski. It's basically worth watching just to check out Gronk. That's my guy. But there is one key opt-out for each team, and that is both teams' starting quarterbacks. Dante Moore for UCLA and Taylor Green for Boise State. Both guys are in the transfer portal. Technically, Taylor Green still could play, but I highly doubt it. I really don't expect him to play at all. Boise State's number one receiver on the season, Eric McAllister, also sitting out for this game, so that's a big loss. UCLA, they still have Ethan Garbers at quarterback, who started a good majority of the games, played pretty well, and they have Steele and Harden at running back. So they still have a lot of their production returning. Boise State missing some of their guys. And UCLA, let's not forget, has one of the best run defenses and defenses in the country. Their defensive line is probably the best in the entire country. Their best defensive lineman, Latu, won the award for the best lineman in the entire country. So we'll see if he plays. I think he's going to, even though he's going to be a high draft pick. So now you got two strengths, right? You got Boise State's strong rush offense, number 6 in the country, versus UCLA's number 3 rush defense in the country. But without Taylor Green and the game being at UCLA, I got to ride with the Bruins here. Chip Kelly's going to have his guys focused, ready to go. And I think the home game factor is really key.
Yeah, you talked about Ethan Garbers a little bit, and although he wasn't the starter the entire way through, he did play a bunch, and so he's not really a backup quarterback to me. He's actually a guy who I would consider a starter, and you look back to the last game that they played, last bowl game specifically for UCLA, it was against Pitt, and I'm not sure if you remember that, but you and I talked a lot about how we were going to play it, and I think we settled on we're slamming UCLA, even though they're a pretty big favorite, and the reason was because Pitt didn't have their quarterback, they didn't have a bunch of other starters who were either going to the NFL or to the portal, and then Pitt ended up handling in that game, and I think they not only covered, but they won on the money line. So I was nervous about this. I thought, maybe Boise State's another team who could come out here. They're excited. UCLA obviously lost their defensive coordinator to USC, and I'm sure he's not going to coach in this game. So although Boise's rolling with a backup QB, it just makes me think, is this a UCLA team I can trust in bowl season? Boise ended up dominating UNLV in their conference championship game, and then they ended up winning 4 of their last 5 by at least 2 scores. So, like I said, you lose the defensive coordinator. I don't know how they're going to respond. I lean Boise here because the line is telling me that UCLA isn't as big of a favorite as I would have assumed they would be in this spot. So I'm going to lean it, but I'm not going to make it an official play. Next up is New Mexico State and Fresno State. New Mexico State, the 3.5-point favorite. So far, the only notable transfer in this game is the backup quarterback at Fresno State. So it looks like we could get a game where both teams are pretty much at full strength. You've got Diego Pavia, the quarterback at New Mexico, who got pulled out during the Liberty game because he had an upper body injury, and we're not sure what it was specifically, but he's had a few weeks to get back to pretty good health, so I bet he's going to be good to go for this one. And I would debate whether it's Jerry Kill or Jeff Tedford with the coaching edge, since both are really good, but Tedford stepped down as their head coach because of his health issues, and it doesn't sound like he's going to coach in this one, so they're going to look to their assistants, and I think you got to give the edge to Jerry Kill just by default. Their defenses are almost identical statistically, ranking 71st and 72nd nationally, but New Mexico State's for sure at the edge on offense, ranking 31st nationally, and they put up over 425 yards a game. So, like I said, I don't know how I feel about these assistants at Fresno going up against Jerry Kill, who's a really seasoned seasoned coach, and I think he ended up winning their bowl game last year. Actually, I know he would have had to because when I looked at the numbers, New Mexico State has never lost a bowl game. I think they're like 4-0 or 5-0 in bowl games outside of one tie. So I'm going to lead with the history. I'm going to lead with the coaching edge with Diego Pavia, and I'm going to give the 3.5 points.
New Mexico State only has 3 non-covers on the entire season. They've been a very good team against the spread. Fresno State only 4-8 against the spread this season. I think Tedford is stepping down not only for health, but also because the Fresno State program is kind of in a downhill. They lost Jake Haener last year, who really brought the program to rankings, to relevancy. This season, not as strong. They're losing their quarterbacks next year. I think he saw the writing on the wall and said, I've had a great career. It's kind of time to step away. And for those reasons, I also like New Mexico State. I think they're the team that's more focused. They're the team that's more present. And they're the team that's ready to go. So I think the 3.5 points kind of leans you to the state saying the books kind of want me to take Fresno State with that extra half point. So I'm riding New Mexico State here. I like to, fade the books when they're trying to take me to go one way.
And when you say it like that, it makes me think, well, how did I bet tonight when I took the 3.5? I saw the Cowboys at -3.5 against the Eagles, and I obviously had to go with the fade the book mentality that you just gave me. And it looks like the Cowboys are going to cover in this one. So I like to stick with that strategy. Next up, another state school is Jacksonville State, -3 against Louisiana Lafayette.
Jacksonville State, another team that was really good against the spread this season. 9-3 total, 5-1 as a favorite. They also have one of the top rush offenses in the entire country. They got a great quarterback in Zion Webb, and Rich Rod, their coach. He's another seasoned coach who's been around the block. Took West Virginia to a New Year's bowl game. Took Michigan to, not a great bowl. He was pretty bad there, but again, this is a guy who's played in big games and had big time bowl experience. But the other thing that Rich Rod has is he has some motivation behind his squad. Jacksonville State was not eligible to make a bowl game this season. The only reason they got in was by default because there weren't enough teams that had 6 wins, so they got to go in. I think the team's going to be angry. I think the team's going to be motivated to prove everyone wrong, saying, you're going to keep us out? Are you kidding me? No. We're Jacksonville State. They got a great rush attack. Louisiana Lafayette's got a bad rush D. Love Jacksonville State here, -3.
Yeah, I saw Lafayette lost 3 of their last 4 games, and only one of those losses was by 3. But in those games, they did score 52, 31, 24, and 17. And they've been playing with 2 QBs, but Chandler Fields, I think his last name is going to be the one who gets the start. But he's not much of a runner, so they won't have the rushing yards at QB to burn up clock, which leads me to think maybe the total's a play in this spot. You've got Jacksonville State, who ranks in the top 5 nationally for run plays of 20 yards or more. So they're known for getting big chunk plays, and then they end up finishing drive with points. So if both QBs are available, and it sounds like they're going to be, I'm going to have to take the over in this spot. And that over is 56.5. So it's not unreasonable to see one team get to at least 30 and then one team have to play catch up towards the end here. If you do want to bet on any of the games we're talking about today, and you want to bet them with no vig at +100 odds like you see on the screen here, which means bet $25 to win $25 without the fees, you can sign up to play on BroThrow for free. If you click the link in the description box below, it's just brothrow.com/YouTube. You get better odds on the money line. And like I said, you don't pay the vig on any bet you make. So it's free to sign up, and that's where Jake and I make all of our picks. But next up, we've got Miami, Ohio, and App State. Miami, Ohio, +6. And in our last video, I did take them +8 against you, who I think you were on Toledo. So that was in the championship game. They ended up winning it outright with their backup QB. And I'm going to ride them again while they're hot, and I'm going to take the points here because App State got killed by Troy a couple weeks ago. And I don't think App State's as good as the books are trying to tell me they are. The line here tells you to take App State since it's obviously pretty unreasonable at -6 when you're talking about a Miami team who is 11-2 on the season. But I think they're a pretty complete team, and they're really motivated to get to that 12-win number. I tried to look at the schedules, but it's really hard to try and compare a Sun Belt schedule with a MAC schedule since the difference in talent is pretty significant. You got guys from the South and then guys from the Northeast. One's backup and reject SEC talent versus reject Big Ten talent. But I did see that Miami ended up going to Cincinnati. They won that game in overtime. And then the only Power 5 team who App State did play this year was UNC, and they came up short in that one. Miami's got the number 27 defense nationally, and App State's been bad on that side of the ball, allowing almost 6 yards a play and 400 yards a game. So even if they do get out to an early lead, who knows if they can score when it matters at the end or if their D can hang on in the clutch. I'm going to stick with my idea and go with Miami +6.
This game is all about the App State offense versus the Miami of Ohio defense. That's the strength of each team. and whichever side of the ball wins that matchup, not only is going to cover, but win the game outright. I look at the total of this game at 47 and a spread of 6. So the books are implying a 27-21 type game, Appalachian State victory. I think if the game is low scoring like that, I like Miami of Ohio. I think that the game favors them. I think their defense played really, really well in that conference championship game. As you said, we bet against each other on BroThrow. I had to send the money out to you. It hurt my heart. But you know what? I'm glad that it's going to you and not a sports book like FanDuel or DraftKings. So enjoy the money, spend it well, and let's bet it again on Miami of Ohio, and I'll ride with you on the Red Hawks +6.
Well, on this next one, you and I might be on the same side. I don't know your pick yet, but you've got Cal and Texas Tech. Texas Tech is -3, but Texas Tech has some opt-outs. Who do you like here?
Yeah, Texas Tech does have a lot of opt-outs. Cal, very, very few. One of the only notable Cal opt-outs is actually their offensive coordinator, who's taking the same job at Baylor, but he still might coach in this game. I'm not 100% sure about that. But the thing about Cal is they were 3-6 and then won their last 3 games to get into the bowl game. So that means the last 3 weeks, basically every game they've been treating like a bowl game because they've had to win to get in, including against UCLA as a 9-point dog where they won outright 33-7. And they've just looked really good. I like their offense a lot. I think Jaden Ott is one of the best running backs in the entire country. Fernando Mendoza is a really good young quarterback. I think he's getting better and better every single game, improving as time goes on. And Texas Tech just hasn't been incredibly impressive to me this year. You know, they're only 3-5 as a favorite against the spread. I like Cal in the spot getting +3 points. I think that they've been very motivated. Their head coach, Justin Wilcox, is getting them ready to go for the last couple of weeks. And win over UCLA really impressed me. I think they're firing and ready to go on all cylinders.
So I think the line here is telling us that coach is not going to be calling the plays in this game, which makes sense. He's got to get on the recruiting trail over there at Baylor. He's trying to build an offense. You know, he had a good one at Cal, but Baylor's really trying to build back. So I'm not expecting to see him in this game. I think that's why the line is in Texas Tech's favor. But I already liked Cal because they finished with a win over Washington State, and then they went back-to-back on the road against Stanford, and like you said, UCLA, and they ended up winning those outright. And then on the other end, you've got Texas Tech, who got obliterated in their last game against Texas. I think they lost by like 45 points. Now you look, and they lost their best offensive lineman, a starting receiver, and then a couple other rotating guys in the portal. And keep in mind, this wasn't just any lineman. This was Monroe Mills, who's one of the top tackles in the portal now. So you have to expect he was a difference maker, and they're going to feel the effects of not having him. So if we're going to take the team with the momentum and the offense that I'd trust more since they've been more consistent, I think it's hard not to play Cal. So I'm going to ride with you here, take the Pac-12 team and the points. And last, we've got...
Speaking of that, I think we're going to see a lot of Pac-12 success in bowls this season just because that league was so strong and so deep this entire season. These teams have already played gauntlets against each other. So I'm going to probably, spoiler alert, be on a lot of Pac-12 teams.
Yeah, and I think the reason is because they've played, like you said, a really tough schedule. So they're experienced in these tougher matchups, and they've already played in high-pressure situations. Last, we've got Georgia Southern and Ohio. Ohio +3.5. And you know, I saw it open at Ohio -2.5, but it swung 5 points already, and that was due to Curtis Rourke leaving in the portal. And I bet on Ohio one time this year. I think you probably bet on them with me. It was against San Diego State, kind of near the beginning of the season. And I loved the pick all the way until Rourke got hurt and CJ Harris came in. And once Rourke was hurt, Harris couldn't move the ball. The Ohio offense kind of looked flat, and then their defense wasn't enough that day. San Diego State ended up winning outright in that one. Now, after that, I vowed to never bet on CJ Harris again. And now you're giving me Georgia Southern, who's on a 4-game losing streak. And you're telling me I have to give 3.5 points? It's telling me that Vegas feels the same way I do about the QB situation at Ohio. And even though I think they're the better team overall, playing without their best player is definitely going to hurt them. And even if the defense isn't very good for Georgia Southern, I don't think Ohio is going to be able to score enough if it does turn into a shootout. So I'm going to take the favorite here.
5.5 point swing, even when you lose a guy like Rourke, is pretty substantial. I mean, you look at some of the top Heisman level guys, and those are guys that I would say are worth, 6-7 points like that. I don't necessarily, Rourke's a great player, don't get me wrong. I don't know if he's worth 5.5 points. I would expect this line to even probably trend more towards Georgia because people are just going to see Rourke out equals fade Ohio. I don't necessarily know that it's that simple. I think there's probably some value in Ohio +3.5, but I'm probably just going to stay away on this one. Maybe take the under because I think Ohio without Curtis Rourke is going to play a very predictable game plan, try to run the ball, keep Georgia Southern off the field. and to try to win the game with defense in a close margin. So I would lean towards under and maybe take the points if it gets to like 6 or something egregious like that.
Yeah, I think you're right about taking the under here because they are going to play a defensive game. They're just going to try to run the ball. CJ Harris has kind of a low percentage when it comes to completing his passes, so not somebody I would trust. But the good news is if you don't want to play these ones, you're going to have plenty more. And the good news for you and I is we got a lot more to talk about this month. So I don't know. These games are on Saturday, I guess. The next slate will probably come mid next week. So I guess you now have some more games to talk about after Saturday, and we'll get to look forward to a heavy month of hopefully some good matchups.
I'm so excited. Bowl season is an absolute great time to feast gambling. Games every day. It's going to be exciting. Stay tuned for tons of content to come right here on the BroThrow YouTube channel.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.